Hey guys, in this video, we're going to focus on really hammering in how to solve a systems of equations by graphing. This is something that's really important for you guys to know in high school. So we'll hammer this in today. Tomorrow, you will get a lesson on solving by substitution. So those are the two methods that we've talked about so far. So these two videos are just going to really kind of serve as a recap and just a thorough review. So please make sure that you're paying attention, especially if you are not quite sure how to do this. So first, let's just focus on graphing a line. Okay, so let's just focus on this first one here for now. Don't cross that out on your paper because we'll do it in a second. But first, let's just focus on that first one. So this is written in what's called slope intercept form. Okay, it's called that because when we have y equals mx plus b, m is a number that can change, and that's the slope, and b is the number that will change, and that's the y-intercept. So that's why this is called the slope-intercept form. If we think about the word y-intercept, remember this vertical line is my y-axis, and this horizontal line is my x-axis. So my y-intercept is the point at which this equation, this line, would cross the y-axis. So if I look at this equation right here, the 2 is going to be my slope. Whoops. And the 1 will be my y-intercept. So I know that this line crosses the y-axis at positive 1. So from 0, I'm going to count to 1, and that's where my first point is. Now let's talk about that other one, which is slope. And remember, we talk about slope in rise over run. Okay, so if I just see a 2, that's 2 over 1. That means I'm going to go up 2 and over 1. Okay, my growth is 2. Every time I go up by 1, every time I go over 1, I'm going up 2. Okay, now I can use those points to create a line. Let's see if this might be a little bit more accurate than just trying to draw it myself. There we go. Okay. So there is that line. Make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So there is my line for that first equation. Okay. So we start with this y-intercept, which was my first point. Then I looked at the number in front of the x, which is my slope. Okay. So if I have 2x plus 1, that means I'm going over 1 and up 2. Okay, so now let's look at this second equation. Again, I have a y-intercept, but this time it's -1. So on my y-axis, I'm going to go to -1 because I know that this line crosses the y-axis at that point. Now my growth is 3 for this line, so every time I go over 1, I'm going up 3. All right, now I can go ahead and create a line. Okay, oops, let's make that blue and bigger. All right, so there are my two lines. All right, now to find the solution for this system, I have to find the point where the two cross. So, I'd rather use this. So I can see that my lines cross right here on that point. So my solution is going to be a coordinate of this point right here. So it's always x, y. So my x value here is going to be 2, and my y value is going to be 5. And that is the solution to my system of equations. All right, let's try it again. All right, so looking at this first one, I'm just going to look at the first equation first. Okay, I don't care about the second one at all right now. All right, so my y-intercept for this one is going to be 6. So on my y-axis, I'm going to go up to 6, and that's where my first point is going to be. All right, now my growth is 4. So I have to think about this because if I go up 4 and over 1, I'm not in the graph anymore. So I'm going to continue the pattern this way and go down 4. Okay, because now from this point, my line is growing over 1 and up 4. So there are my 2 points. All right, now I will go ahead and connect these. I'm just going to try and draw this. Hopefully that's straight enough. That doesn't look very straight, but I can't use a ruler on a computer. So actually, maybe I can. Hold on. Let's give it a shot. You don't let me do that. Kind of. No, I think it was more accurate when I did it myself. Okay, let's just go back to inserting the shape. Sorry, guys. Of course, it wouldn't be me if we didn't have some technical difficulties, huh? Okay, make it bigger. There. All right, so there's the line of our first equation. Now let's go ahead and look at our second equation. My y-intercept is going to be -3 for this one. So at at 0, I'm going to count down to -3. And then remember, if there's no number in front of this x, that just means I have one x. Because if we thought about this with our algebra tiles, this would be one of those big purple y tiles. And then we'd have one x and 3 negatives, right? So I have one x. I just don't write that. All right, so let's get rid of that. So that means my growth is 1. So every time I go up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, etc., etc. All right, let's try this ruler thing again. Actually, it was not that bad. All right, so there is the line of my second equation. Now my solution is going to be where these 2 points cross. So that would be this point right here. Now remember, this needs to be the coordinate. So if I look at my x value here, this is at -3. And on my y-axis, it is at -6. So my solution is -3, -6. All right, moving on. Our next one here, let's start with our first equation again. I don't really care about the second one right now. So I'll start with my y-intercept, which is 5. Actually, at this point, I challenge you guys, if you are watching this, to at least pause it and try this one on your own before continuing on with the rest of this, okay? I challenge you guys to try that. It will help you understand better. So if you can, pause it and try one on your own before playing the solution here. Okay, so my y-intercept is 5, so I'm going to count up to 5, and that is where my first point will be. Now I'm going to look at my growth. In this case, it is 3, so every time I go over 1, I'm going up 3. All right, now I have my 2 lines, and sometimes if it's hard to connect these, you can continue this pattern down so that you have more points, to be able to create a really straight line. Okay, so now I can just Connect all those. Now that's pretty straight. All right, now let's look at my next equation. Okay, so for this one, my y-intercept is 4. So on my y-axis, I'm going to count up to 4, and that's where my first point is going to go. Be careful, they're not quite touching here, so that's not our y-intercept that's not our solution. Okay, but now this one, it has a growth of 2. So every time it goes over 1, it goes up 2. And again, you can continue this pattern to help you draw a straight line, and that will probably help you identify your common point, which we now see is that one right there. Okay, so we need our coordinate for this point right here. All right, and I see that my x value is -1 and my y value is +2. So my solution is -1 and 2. All right, now we're going to move into some that are a little bit more complicated. Not a lot, just a little. Again, we'll just start with our first equation here. So I have y equals 3x minus 4. My y-intercept is going to be this -4, which will be right there. So there's my first point at -4. Now my growth is 3. So every time I go over 1, I'm going up 3. Over 1, up 3. Over 1, up 3. Over 1, up 3. All right, and now I can connect these points to create a relatively straight line. All right, now what about this y equals 5? So here we have a y-intercept, right? I have that number without the x, but I don't have a number in front of the x. Okay, so this is saying that basically, I have a line at 5 on my y-axis. So really, this would be y equals 0x plus 5. Excuse me. If you graphed it this way, we would see that my y-intercept would be at 5, but then my growth is 0. Okay, so every time I go over 1, I'm not going up or down at all. So I just have a straight line straight across at 5. Okay, so this is a horizontal line. When you don't have any growth, it is a horizontal line. Okay. So now we can see that our solution is this point right here. Remember, our point of intersect is our solution. So this coordinate right here, my x value is at 3, and my y value is at 5. So my solution to this system of equations is 3, 5. Okay, now we have a similar situation, but with my second equation, instead of having y equals 5, I have x equals 4. So we'll get to that one in a minute, but first let's just focus on this top one. And I see my y-intercept is -6. So I'm going to count down to -6. All right, and then my growth is 2. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1. And I'm going to continue that pattern. Okay, and then I will go ahead and connect these points with a line. Okay, now this one is similar to our other problem, but now it's saying x equals 4. So over here, y equals 5 told us that no matter what x is, okay, so no matter what value on my x-axis I have, the y will always be 5. Every single one of these coordinates on this point, or I'm sorry, on this line will always have 5 as its y coordinate. So this one is just always going to have 4 as its x coordinate. So no matter what, x equals 4. So this one is going to be a vertical line at x equals 4. And now again, we can go ahead and find our point of intersect, which is our solution. So in this case, our x value is at 4. Like we said, that's all it could be. And our y value is 2. Okay, if I, to talk about what I mean by x is always 4, if I were to write the coordinate for this point on the line, my x is still 4, but now my y is negative 5. So no matter what, my x coordinate on this line is always going to be 4. So this is a vertical line. All right, now let's move on to the last two here on the worksheet. Oops. Again, we'll focus on the very first equation here. My y-intercept is here, that's negative 2. And then I'll look at my growth, which is 5. So every time I go over 1, I'm going to go up 5. And if I continue this pattern, then I should get enough points to create an accurate, whoa, that was awful. Let's try this again. And I can create a decently straight line. All right, now let's look at my second equation. Here, you'll notice that we have the same y-intercept. That is a huge hint on where the solution for this system is going to be. All right, so they share the same y-intercept, but here my growth is 3. So every time I go over 1, I'm going up 3, over 1, up 3, over 1, up 3, so on and so forth. And I can create a relatively straight line, but I already know that my point of intersection is right here. So my x is 0, okay? So I'm right here in the middle at 0 on my x-axis. So my x-coordinate is going to be 0. My y-coordinate is negative 2, and that's the solution to the equation. All right, for the last one here. You'll notice here we have another one of those y equals a number and an x equals a number, okay? These aren't like the complex equations that we've been dealing with so far. So if you look back at your notes, you'll remember that y equals 4 is a horizontal line. Oh my gosh, come on. And x equals negative 2 is a vertical line. All right, so looking at my first one here, I have no growth, but I do have a y-intercept at 4. Okay, so I know that I have a horizontal line right at y equals 4. Okay, now my second line here is also a straight line, but this one is vertical. Okay, now here it's going to be at x equals negative 2. All right, now they cross at exactly 1 point right here, which is going to be the solution to my equation. So my x coordinate there is negative 2, and my y coordinate is 4, and the solution is negative 2, 4. All right, so those are the rest of the ones on your worksheet, but I do want to talk about special cases a little bit, and you'll need this for the little entry task that I posted for today as well. Oops. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple special cases, and we'll look at this first one here first, and you might notice something odd. So technically, these are the same line, right? I have my y-intercept at negative 4, then I have a growth of 7. So 4, 5, 6, 7, and over 1. Okay, so there is my line. Now, if I look at this second line, I still have my y-intercept at 4, and I am going up 7. Okay, so my points are on the exact same place, and the lines lie on top of each other. This means that they share every point, right? These are the exact same lines. So we have infinite solutions. Okay, they share an infinite number of points, right? Because all of their points are shared. Okay, now the other special case I want to talk about is when they have the same growth. So looking at this first line, my y-intercept is going to be at negative 4. and then my growth will be 3. Okay, so up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. Okay, now I can create a straight line. All right, now let's look at our other line. So here I have a y-intercept of 2, but I'm still going up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1. Come on. Okay, so what do you guys notice here? So these lines are parallel. And if we think about the definition of parallel, that means that they have the same slope and they will never cross. Okay, so there is no solution to a system of equations when they have the same slope. Okay, so hopefully you have learned a bit from these notes, and please use this knowledge to complete your exit ticket that I posted. It's just a short little Google form with just a couple questions. So make sure you get that done today before you leave class.